Srila Prabhupada is revealing in this purport how it is only possible for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is full with all opulences, to simultaneously always remain in Goloka, his topmost planet, in the spiritual world, and at the same time be all-pervading. There is nowhere that the Supreme Lord is not personally existing, both through his energies, Brahman, he is pervading everything. The sun in one location is emitting rays which are non-different from the sun. Although the sun has its place semi-permanently within the sky, through the rays or the energy of the Lord, the sun, is all-pervading within the universe. In the same way, although the Lord is always existing in Goloka Vrindavan, by the rays of his body, which are non-different from himself, he manifests as Brahman everywhere, all-pervading. All material and spiritual worlds, the Lord is existing. Everything is within the Lord, and the Lord is within everything. Also, the Lord expands himself, as Srila Prabhupada is explaining herein, as the Paramatma. Within this material creation, the Paramatma is everywhere, within the heart of every living being. The Paramatma knows every thought, sees every action, hears every word of everyone, always. The Paramatma never sleeps, always alert as the constant witness. For the bacteria, the insects, plant life, the reptiles, the birds, the beasts, all varieties of human beings, demigods, asuras, Paramatma is within the heart. And it is that Paramatma that is directing the wanderings of everyone. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati. From within the heart. According to our desires, according to our karmas, the Paramatma is directing us forward or backward. We have our free will, and the Lord sees how at every moment we either use properly or misuse that free will. A devotee understanding the presence of the Paramatma within the heart is very careful. Hypocrisy is seen immediately by the Paramatma. And it is a great detriment to one's spiritual progress. Essentially, honesty does not only extend to speaking truthful, straightforward, in a simple way to the people of this world around us, but on the spiritual platform, honesty is acting, speaking in such a way that the Lord within the heart is satisfied. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he tells that the first principle that must be adopted to make real progress in the path of bhakti is simplicity. Simplicity means no duplicity. An honest, straightforward lifestyle, clear and transparent. To be simple, humility is required. Because false pride is the very basis in which so many complications come into our life. But if we are humble, honest, straightforward, that is simplicity. Without a separate agenda. Not that I say something, but it's veiled with another purpose. Not that I do something, but there's an ulterior motive behind it for some selfish purpose. Simple person is a person who the Paramatma within the heart is pleased with. So this type of simplicity must be there in our dealings with others in the world and our dealings with the constant witness of the Paramatma within the heart. Why? Why we're not conscious of Paramatma? Why we don't feel his watchful eye at every moment? Why we don't feel his pleasure and displeasure with everything we do? As we make spiritual progress, we actually do have that experience. However, the Lord, being all-merciful, he gives us free will. And in order to facilitate that, the Lord makes himself invisible to our consciousness so that we can exercise our free will. If again and again we defy the direction and the will of the Lord in the heart, then the Lord simply, to facilitate our desire, makes himself invisible. So that the grossly materialistic people, they have no conception there even is a Lord in the heart. They consider that they are independent and on their own. There is no watchful eye. There is no monitoring spiritual agent. After all, life is a combination of chemicals that have evolved to where we are today. And whatever we do, and however we do it, essentially it doesn't matter. For social purposes, we may choose morality and ethics. but there's no binding reason why we should do it. How is that possible? The Lord is sitting within the heart, right next to the Jivatma. As the Upanishad describes, like two birds in the same tree. One bird is simply watching. The other bird is trying to enjoy the fruits of the tree. Sometimes it bites into a sweet fruit and feels great pleasure. But then at another time it bites into a bitter fruit and feels great pain. And such a bird, it's very hard, the way the tree's fruits are, to discriminate which is sweet and which is bitter. Sometimes enjoying, sometimes suffering. But the other bird is simply watching, waiting for the day when we turn to him. So similarly, the Paramatma reveals himself to us. Yegatamam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham. When we actually turn to him. And to the degree we're turning to him, to the degree we're taking shelter of the Lord within the heart, the Lord makes his presence visible. So those who are engaging in irreligious activities, egoistic pursuits, they do not want the Lord to be watching. So the Lord more or less hides himself. Just like one of the demons, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, this was their logic. That what could Lord Vishnu do? He's so afraid that he's hiding in the hearts of all living beings. What he can do to you. What he can do to me. So afraid of my prowess that he's gone hiding in the hearts of all living beings. So yes, if the Lord wants to hide, no one could find him. And if the Lord wants to make himself visible, then no one can resist him. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kamam. There is one supreme eternal, the absolute truth. And there are infinite eternals. And those infinite eternals are eternally subordinate to the one supreme eternal. That is Krishna. Krishna can be within the heart of every living being and in and between every atom. How many manifestations of Paramatma are in this city of Mumbai? There is no possible number that we could ever fathom. There is no computer that could even come up with such a number that could properly reveal the amount of Paramatmas in this city. What to speak of the country, the world, the universe, the cosmic manifestation. This is the greatness of the Lord. He has practically infinite forms. And they never sleep, they never rest. And each of these Paramatmas is very personal. It's just specifically your Paramatma. So intimate, so personal. Each of us have our own little Paramatma in the heart. And whatever birth we take, that Paramatma just keeps coming with us. Never gives up on us. That's the most amazing thing. Even if we become tyrants, even if we absolutely blaspheme the Lord, blaspheme His devotees, engage in the most nefarious activities that give the greatest displeasure to the Lord, still, He's right there in our heart. He never leaves. That would be eternal condemnation. If the Paramatma thought you're such a wicked, evil person that I leave you forever. But the Lord is so kind. Even if He sends us to the darkest regions of hell to suffer the consequences of our sinful acts, still, our own personal Paramatma is there with us in the heart. Even if due to our sinful acts, we're cast down to a species of bacteria, our loving Father is right there with us, never gives up on us. That is unconditional love. In order for there to be love, there must be free will. But in order for people in this world to eventually make the right choice, the laws of karma have been created. And there are amazingly intensified forms of pleasure and pain that one can enjoy or suffer in this world. The Lord has created them, but we're the ones who make the choice of which to accept. Any one of us could just make the decision to go to a heavenly planet and enjoy like Indra. Or we can make the decision to enter into planets that the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describe, where there's such pain that a human being with a human body could never survive even a minute of such pain. We would just crack. It's just too much. But there we experience the same thing we would feel here, but we live through it constantly. It's hellish. That's what we really mean by hellish. But that is our free will. The Lord is not sending us there. We're choosing to go there. And He has created the laws that will simply automatically work accordingly. And as the Paramatma, He's supervising it all within the heart. But even though He has created that, still, He never leaves a single living entity. Out of the unlimited living entities who are envious of Him within this cosmic manifestation, never for a moment does the Paramatma ever leave the side of the spirit soul. He's always there. And why is He always there? Not for the purpose of punishing. He's always there to give shelter. To whatever extent we have abandoned Him, He's always the closest thing to the soul to give us shelter. There's nothing closer than the Paramatma to the Jivatma. Physically, spiritually, on every level. When the soul enters into the body, like a little sun planet, its energy in the form of sunshine, according to the example, takes the form of consciousness. Why every part of the body we can experience? Because there's consciousness flowing there. And that consciousness is the energy of the soul. But the soul is localized in a particular place within our heart. Within this material world, the Upanishads describe it as the size of 1/10,000th that of the tip of a hair. And not only is it so tiny and small, but even if you had a microscope that could see something that small, you still couldn't see it. Because you're looking at it through an eye made out of flesh and blood. But the soul is not constituted of the 8 elements of material existence. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. You can't see the mind. You can see brain waves, but those are just symptoms or manifestations of what's happening. But the mind you can never see with the senses because it's a subtle element. And subtler than the mind is the intelligence. And even subtler is the ego. The spirit soul is not subtler than the ego. The spirit soul is of another nature. The spirit soul is not constituted of any material elements that can be perceived by the material senses, both gross or subtle. We cannot really even conceive of the Lord within our mind or our intelligence, because the Lord is pure spiritual. Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. And Krishna reveals in Gita that what is the nature of the Atma? It is part and parcel of the Supreme Atma. We are part of God. We are not God, but we are part of God. We are of the same spiritual quality of God. And it is that spiritual quality, which is such an infinitesimal little particle of the Supreme, that has so much power. Power to attract, power to destroy. We have seen what people can do within the world we live in. That's just the power of the soul. It's not the power of the body, because the body can function in no way without the dynamic energy of the spirit within it. And that Jivatma, the closest thing to the Jivatma, is the Paramatma. As long as we remain within this material world. When we go back home, back to Godhead, the spiritual world, then there's no need for Paramatmas. The Lord is personally, as Bhagavan, present in our lives, engaging in transcendental pastimes with us forever. So this is mercy. Who is it in this world who has that power to never abandon you under any situation for even a moment? In hundreds of billions of years within this material creation, the Paramatma does not close his eyes or ears for a moment. He's always there, waiting. That is love. That is all-pervading. So people who have a very poor fund of knowledge of the nature of God, they believe in this misconception that we can become God, or that some earthly being in this world is God. The best we could do is be godly. The best we could do, the ultimate perfection, prema pumarta mahan, is to love God. Lord Chaitanya revealed from the scriptures that beyond even mukti is love of God. Mukti is liberation from material sufferings. And often, in order to attain that state of freedom from sufferings, we temporarily forget our own identity, both material and spiritual. And we simply exist within Brahman. But higher than that is to awaken one's constitutional nature. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajja Kabunoi, which is to love Krishna. It is the essence of our existence, to love God, to serve God, to willingly, spontaneously surrender to the will of God. A neophyte devotee surrenders to the will of God as an austerity, to give up things that we want to do, that we long and crave to do, but we say no, to be obedient to the will of God, to do things that we have no inclination for, in obedience to the will of God. That is a premature level of surrender. But when the heart becomes pure, surrender is the spontaneous nature of our love. There's simply nothing else we could even conceive of doing except what pleases Krishna. Therefore, Lord Shiva told to Parvati, Narayana parasarave nakutaschana bibyate, swarga pavarga narakeshu apitulyata darshana. See these pure devotees of Narayan. How pure is their heart? For them, it makes no difference at all whether they're in the flames of hell or in the palaces of heaven, because their only concern is to please the Lord. If they can please the Lord in hell or please the Lord in heaven makes no difference to them. That is the transcendental position. Srila Prabhupada explains, to become one with God in the perfect state is for our desire to be one with Krishna's desire. Not to lose our identity. The most intimate and sweetest form of oneness is the oneness of love, yoga. When the Jivatma and the Paramatma unite in the ecstatic experience of love. And it is for this purpose, to give us this chance, that Krishna remains personally beside the soul in every situation at all times. Srila Prabhupada gave an example that for honest people, when they see a policeman, they feel very protected. But for criminals, what is their experience when they see a policeman? They feel fearful. Srila Prabhupada explains, even if a policeman comes in with good intentions, if he comes in the room, everybody becomes very disturbed. Why has he come? Who is he looking for? What is he doing? Yes. So when we become devotee, we have consciousness of the Lord within our heart. For people who have spent so many lifetimes grossly neglecting the will of the Lord, sarvasya chaham hridisha nivishto matasmitira jnanam apohanam cha. The Lord is the cause of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The animal species are not conscious of the Paramatma, although the Paramatma is directing practically everything they do. But they have no consciousness. They're only thinking of enjoying eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, totally immersed in the bodily conception of life. There's no consideration, there's no thought of anything beyond relieving pain and finding pleasure for the body. That is the lower species. Paramatma is right there, but invisible, hiding from our consciousness. And in human life, for those who are grossly atheistic, materialistic, they have no conception that there's a Paramatma. But when we actually understand the principle of religion, then we know that God is always watching us. This is a principle of every great religion of the world, that the Lord's eyes are always upon us. His ears are always open to whatever we say. Now, the Vedic literatures, they explain these basic principles in scientific, philosophical detail. How is it that the Lord is always with us? Bhagavad Gita, there's a beautiful verse. Everywhere are his eyes and ears, his legs and arms. In this way, the super soul, the Paramatma, exists. The Lord is seated within the heart of everyone. In this way, Krishna is all-pervading as well. Through his energy of Brahman, everything is within him. He is all-pervading. And through his personal feature of Paramatma, the Paramatma is not just an energy of God. It is God himself personally existing within us. The Paramatma is personal. It's the personality of Godhead in this feature. So this is Krishna. Although he is eternally in Goloka Vrindavan, performing his beautiful pastimes, dancing with gopis, playing wonderful games with the gopas, causing anxiety to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj by his loving pranks. Every cow, every calf, every peacock, every parrot, every tree is intimately thinking that Krishna is always with me. The reservoir of all pleasure, Navayovanam cha, in his eternally youthful form, is playing upon his flute as the pleasure and the ultimate ornament of Sri Vrindavan Dham. And in Vrindavan, Krishna's Rasaraj, or in Bombay we call him Rasa Bihari. He's simply enjoying. He's the supreme enjoyer. He has nothing to do with material existence. Now, if you're a businessman or a housewife, you may enjoy with your friends, but any moment the phone may ring. Especially now we have these cell phones. And some duty, you're called for some duty somewhere else. And your enjoyment is either disturbed or diverted. Yes? So how is it? Every living being within this material existence is the child of God. Aham bija pratapita. Krishna is the eternal father and mother of every living being. Now, if you're on holiday in Tirupati, and all of a sudden your cellular phone rings and your little son or daughter has just been hit by a car and is in the hospital in critical condition, can you enjoy your darshan of Balaji? Huh? Will you be having nice time? No, it will be a diversion. At the least, it will be a diversion. So Krishna's in Goloka Vrindavan. And here, his sons and daughters, some of them are doing nefarious activities, some are getting horrible diseases, some are being cast down to hellish planets. Hare Krishna. So how can you enjoy? How can you enjoy Ras Lila when all these things are going on? Isn't it a diversion? Is it that God doesn't really love us? He doesn't really care what happens to us in this material world? Or is it that he's just so totally immersed in Leelas that he just turns off his cellular phone and doesn't get any news about anything except right there in the Ras Mandala? The Supreme Personality of Godhead has inconceivable potencies. Nothing disturbs his Leela in Goloka Vrindavan. He expands himself. He expands himself into plenary portions that are absolutely non-different from him, and they're worrying about all the affairs of this world. Yes? He expands himself as the Paramatma, and he's transcendentally right there to help us in every situation. Meanwhile, in Goloka, Krishna's aloof to all these things. But at the same time, he's not aloof to anything, because the self-same personality is taking other forms to deal with all these situations. That is God. Who can do that? Who could be simultaneously absolutely attentive and feeling pain to see the suffering of others and be enjoying eternally aloof from it all? Have you ever met anyone? Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. Gopinath is always smiling, playing his flute. And he expands himself in so many ways to perform all the functions of material creation. That's the duty of Karunadakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and essentially Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Kshirodakshay Vishnu is living in Svetadvip, in a planet within each universe, and at the same time, he's within the heart of every living being. As our father, as our mother, watching over us. And is there a difference between Paramatma and Krishna in Goloka? Absolutely no difference. Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. The Paramatma is Krishna, just performing a very merciful, intimately loving function for us. If it wasn't for living entities rebelling against Krishna, he would not be a Paramatma. He would not be a super soul in anyone's heart. It's for our sake. So the more we understand the inconceivable greatness of the Lord, the more we can be aware of His presence. So for a devotee who theoretically understands the Paramatma is within my heart, watching and hearing, tasting and smelling, feeling everything we do, Hare Krishna. And the Paramatma is proportionately pleased or displeased with everything we do or say, even everything we think. And He's there to give us shelter. Now, for those who rebel against the Lord, who know they're doing the wrong thing, for such people, they want to temporarily forget the Paramatma. Yes? If you're doing something you know Guru does not want, and Krishna does not want, if you know you're doing something the scriptures warn us against, then do you want to feel that Paramatma, here I am again, I'm doing it again? You can't enjoy if you're thinking like that. Can you? And the whole purpose of doing it is to enjoy. So there's a dilemma. What to do? So somehow or other, we want to forget the Lord. I want to remember you, but not now. So let me just turn off the channel till tomorrow morning. And then I'll turn it on, and then I want you to be right there watching everything I do, and I want to be thinking of you and meditating on you and chanting your holy names. But for now, please, just let me just turn off the station. Otherwise, how can we enjoy? It's psychotic. Paramatma's watching. I want to love you, I want to remember you, but I'm doing things that you don't want. And you're seeing. And you're frowning on me. Yes? Generally, little children are most naughty when their parents are not watching. Yes? That's why I don't know India as much, but I know in America, where people are traditionally more naughty, in the Western world, unless we really need them for our sense gratification, we don't want our parents anywhere around. We want them to live and be happy, but not where I am. Yes? That's it. Time of marriage. Who lives with their parents in the West? Joint family, that's something that it's practically unheard of, unless you come to India. In fact, usually as soon as you get 18 years old, you're gone. You're out of the house. And you just come back, to collect something. Then you're gone. Why? Because you don't want your parents watching. They're simply a disturbance. You only want to see them when you need them. Hare Krishna.